Have you ever been watching the news and a story about a kid being abused, abandoned, or even starved comes on and it shocks you and surprises you and you think, how could someone do that to a child? Or that's disgusting. Or their parents need to be locked up and arrested for the rest of their life for treating kids that way. I know I have, and I think everyone's always had those thoughts. We all do, but when it comes to animals, no one blinks an eye. Truth of the matter is, animals are often treated the same way as some kids in the news stories, and no one cares. Animal testing is where this happens. It's cruel and evil, and we need to stop. Especially in cosmetic brands, animal testing is very common. They're used to ensure that the products being created are safe for us humans to use. But these animals are tortured through the trial and error process. Like any product that's ever created, there's always going to be a test that goes wrong, so we change it to make it better. But these animals are suffering from our mistakes. They don't have any rights and they're unprotected. There's only one law that even talks about animal rights when being experimented on, and it's the Animal Welfare Act. This law was passed by President Johnson in 1966. This law requires that minimum standards of care and treatment be provided for certain animals bred for commercial sale, used in research, transported commercially, or exhibited to the public. This excludes about 95% of the animals that we are using to test these products. And it also comes with a low state of care. They're not treated for, they're not fed, they're basically just thrown in a cage or even killed after an experiment's over. Procedures are borderline animal abuse, which thankfully now is illegal and considered a felony in the US. These animals are exposed to chemicals, they're starved, they're killed, and that's just some things that happen. They're unwillingly tested on and there's no rights. Another reason that this process needs to stop is people think that there's no alternatives, but there's honestly so many alternatives that we could go to. Organs on chips is one of them. The Wyss Institute of Harvard created these little chips that go in a computer, and they closely resemble DNA from a human, and it closely predicts reactions of how humans would react to certain drugs that they're testing. Another alternative is computer modeling. It predicts how drugs will affect the human, just like the computer chips. One of the alternatives is human volunteers. I'm not too big on this one, but basically it's anyone who wants to sign up can be tested on. They get a small dose of whatever they're testing, and then imaging techniques are used to record their symptoms. This system is called microdosing. And then another one is human stimulators, like that creepy robot Sophia that everyone's raving about. These stimulators are created that breathe, bleed, convulse, talk, and even die. They've been shown to teach students psychology and pharmacology better than crude exercises that involve animals. All are better, safer, and more humane ways of using these animals because there's less room for killing human and animal beings. Also, animals are poor test subjects. None of the animals that we use, like mice, rats, rabbits, guinea pigs, fish, farm animals, none of their DNA comes close enough to humans to closely predict how we will react to a product. The Humane Society International states that 9 out of 10 medicines that pass an animal test fail once they reach the consumer. Unreliable results are often produced because of this, but they also cause harm and they waste our resources. Animal testing is very expensive, and the money that we use to test on these animals can be used to develop new methods and develop our alternatives and make it better instead of just wasting it killing animals. Cruelty Free International says that out of the millions of animals used each year, only 60 medicines were approved last year in 2018. Also, the drug industry spends about $50 billion a year, and the drugs that pass have such a low rate of acceptability. About $16 billion of this money that goes towards this process is from the tax that comes from everyone's pocket, even those that do not like animal testing or not for it. Your tax money is often going to this process. Of course, there are people that are not going to agree with me and say that animal testing is good, and their main reason is that animals benefit from this process. Procon.org states that if vaccines were not tested on these animals, millions of them would have died from rabies, distemper, feline leukemia, infections, hepatitis virus, anthrax, and the canine parvovirus. They also argue that animals benefited because it helped save endangered species like the black-footed ferret and the Brazilian pteramins. Even though similar conditions that occur in humans also occur in these animals, vaccines could help, but overall, animals are getting harmed and killed. So, in my opinion, those animals that have benefited from one animal test out of the millions that we do every year does not compete with all the ones that are being hurt for no reason. They are purposely toxined and they do not get cared for. This process is very dangerous. These animals are purposely burned and given infections so that we can study the treatment and recovery. And we have so many more alternatives that we can use. And I believe that we need to start using them.